Breaking news, Jim Acosta is threatening to quit CNN for good after it was reported that the network demoted him to the midnight slot.
This week has been Jim Acosta is moving from 10 a.m. to midnight.
Right.
And I guess they sold it to him by saying it's prime time on the West Coast.
Right. I think there's been a very different tone in Washington with companies and with journalists. And it's reported now that CNN is trying to move Jim Acosta to the midnight to 2 a.m. slot, even though he has pretty good ratings for them, in the afternoon. I think for some of these reasons.
So poor Jim Acosta is getting demoted. Let's remember what got him to this point.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election to try to keep them?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual. It happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
So Jim Acosta tries to filibuster the press conference, and it only gets worse from there.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts.
Well, I'm not a big fan of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
Perfect laugh break there.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course.
Okay, just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir.
CNN made this decision to demote Jim Acosta after Jim Acosta infamously defended the network and got savaged by this congressman.
Is covered on CNN. What you're saying, this is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes. Yeah. This is CNN. This is the news. We are asking you to come on and tell the truth.
And that's why more people are watching the Cartoon Network SpongeBob reruns right now, Jim.
Oh, burn. Jim Acosta said, this is CNN. This is the news.
This is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes. Yeah. This is CNN. This is the news. We are asking you to come on and tell the truth. It's an alarming choice for a man who has often struggled to unequivocally denounce white supremacists. You recall these moments.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Those words have power. They have meaning. And when Donald Trump speaks, the world listens. Neo-Nazis and white supremacists certainly listen. So why can't he denounce them? Why can't he reject their support?
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
What's your response to Donald Trump saying she should be fired, that Liz Cheney should be fired upon? He keeps speaking in these very extreme terms about the potential dangers to the country if he doesn't win in November. He's used words like bloodbath.
If that's not misinformation, I don't know what is. But at least Jim Acosta still has some fans, right?
Hey, is this Jim Acosta?
Yeah.
Wow, fake news, Jim Acosta, everybody.
Aw, maybe not. Here's how Jim Acosta treated the last press secretary for Trump.
He is trying to pass a Muslim ban in this country.
That's an absurd attempt to justify the misleading headlines that are regularly on your network.
Are you saying that the president
Gotta let me finish,
this
Jim.
sort
This
of-
isn't a cable news segment. I'm answering your question right now from the White House podium. And it's appalling. You have one person on your network saying that this is a celebration in the streets, a carnival-like atmosphere. There's a guy with a sign that says free hugs. You celebrate hugging in the context of a protest, but in a Trump rally, that rally's not allowed because guess what, Jim? It doesn't fit the ideological agenda of CNN. Peter Alexander. Well, CNN's Jim Acosta claims that the role of journalists, which not sure what he'd know about that, is to, quote, seek the truth and be, quote, defenders of the people.
Journalists exist to seek the truth, to tell people's stories, to lift up voices that may not be heard otherwise, to shine a light on injustice, and to hold the powerful accountable. We are not the enemy of the people. We are the defenders of the people. A woman sent me this sign 8 years ago. She carried it here at a march in Washington. She wrote on the back of the sign, to me and the press here in D.C., you have our support. To Nora, wherever you are, right back at you.
Well, if he really means that, then he would know that includes Americans, even Trump supporters. Now, let me remind you, this is the same Jim Acosta who openly expresses his contempt for President-elect Trump.
Here are more of all of Jim Acosta's fails, replete with a laugh track.
Don't be rude.
Attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No,
give
I'm
us a
not going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
I tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. We'll get
Just
it.
because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news. When you report fake news, no, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead. Because your question is a very political question, because you have an agenda. You're CNN. You're fake news. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this?
In Trump's first term, Jim Acosta epitomized fake news, emotionally unhinged, and pushed every anti-Trump Democrat hoax. The latest report is that Jim Acosta may exit CNN rather than accept the move to the graveyard shift. According to the New York Post, Acosta's days at CNN may be numbered, as the former White House correspondent known for his combative coverage of Trump could be heading for the exits rather than accept a move that would see him broadcast a nightly show starting at midnight. This is according to the LA Times as well. Another CNN staffer told Fox News that Acosta was quote-unquote getting hosed. The CNN staffer added, "The midnight thing is shocking, but it is what it is," end quote. According to the New York Post, Mark Thompson, the CNN top boss, announced a lineup reshuffle that will see Wolf Blitzer move his Situation Room program from the early evenings to the mornings. Blitzer will anchor his show alongside Pamela Brown, the network confirmed on Thursday. CNN also announced that it was laying off some 200 staffers as it transitions its focus away from its linear television operation to a more digital-centered news outlet. In other words, CNN is going belly up and they're trying to save their business. Jim Acosta is just another casualty of fake news, eroding the public trust in the press. All I can say is good riddance.